Welcome to the Gen Z Show. I'm your host, James McLamb. With me tonight is Sarah Beth, who is recovering from a race yesterday. What race did you participate in yesterday?
I ran a Spartan sprint yesterday with my brother.
Ooh, and that leads us really good to our guest that we have today, because if you go to Mr. Jimmy Page's LinkedIn profile, you'll see that he lists under his description that he is a Spartan racer. So that's very good. So Jimmy Page was our guest today. And related to what he said, do you make New Year's resolutions, Sarah Beth?
I try to, or like set goals for the year.
Do you keep those resolutions? Are they met?
About 50% of them are. Like one of mine was to do something for myself, so run a Spartan race was that. But other ones, they end up falling through the cracks.
Well, that's the case so many times that people forget their New Year's resolutions or their goals get by the way. And so Jimmy Page and his co-authors wrote a book several years ago to help eliminate that. And it was really focusing on one word. One word that'll change your life. Having a one word focus for your life that for that particular year. And then he actually goes into a word that's kind of a legacy uh, book as well, because he's written there's three books on this. There's this one word, and that's what he and I talk about today in the podcast. There's also one word for kids. So if you want to have that one for kids, and then the other book that he has, I do not have, but I'm going to be buying it pretty soon, is actually taking the one word and talking about it in a legacy type standpoint. So have you ever had one word as a focus, whether it was on an athletic team or on something?
Yeah. When I was a state officer, we had one word that we did, and that was grow.
Grow. That is a good one word for the thing. So Jimmy talks about that, how you can use that as being the focus of a particular season in your life, and how you can start it as a family, as an individual, and it doesn't really matter your age. So I really enjoyed my interview, and you're going to love our interview today with Mr. Jimmy Page. Jimmy, welcome to the Gen Z Show. I appreciate you being willing to join us today. You and I were chatting offline and really beforehand and comparing who we knew in common. And that's always fun when we can share mutual friends and going forward. But thank you for agreeing to be our guest.
Oh, man, it's an honor. It's a privilege. Glad to be with you. Looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. Our audience heard a little bit of my introduction of you, but they always want to hear from you a little bit more about you, who you are, and what you want them to know. So, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of yourself with our Gen Z audience.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so I grew up in Rochester, New York, so I'm a New York native. I live in Colorado now, and in the early days, I went to school at Virginia Tech, and that's actually where my real relationship with Christ started. I was raised kind of in a religious home, loved the upbringing that I had in that environment. Came to Christ in college, and then got involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and then began a journey of volunteering with them as I became a professional in the health and fitness, sports performance, medical wellness side of things. Worked for two big healthcare systems in Maryland for quite some time, and then jumped on staff with FCA. Had been on staff with FCA for 17 years. Just recently left FCA to start a nonprofit called the Unstoppable Freedom Alliance. Jumped into the fight for freedom to protect and promote and defend American values and the individual liberties that we have. I'm an author and a speaker. I've done a lot of different things in life, and I'm trying to stay on purpose and to operate in a spot of passion as well. So that's a little bit more about me. I've been married for almost 30 years, have 4 kids. They're almost all grown. My youngest daughter is 19, and my oldest son is 27 now. So I have a pretty big stretch of kids as well.
Well, we're similar on that. We've been married almost 30 years, and my oldest though is 22, and the youngest is 12. So I've still got some years to go before I am an empty nester here.
Yeah, you're a late bloomer. It's okay. That's all right.
The there's a great story on the last one that you could very much see. Well, on all three of them, you can see God's hand on how they came and when they came. Which I probably need to do a podcast episode sometime on that. That would be really neat to hear and stuff. So you said you were an author, and that's how we have connected. Is really through one of the books that you've authored, which is this book here I showed in the opening. One word that would change your life, and our audience can see it there behind you if they're watching. Tell me about that book. What started it? How did you guys decide this was something you wanted to do?
Well, for the longest time, I was in relationship with one of my co-authors, Dan Britton, and then of course John Gordon as well. And we had been doing life together and would get together every year and do New Year's resolutions. I mean, we're all athletes, we're all competitors, we all want to make the most of our life, and we had a desire to put a game plan together every year, which would kind of list all the things that we wanted to get done that year and things we wanted to accomplish. And what we discovered in the earliest days, and by the way, this was before the turn of 2000, this was 1999 and prior. What we discovered was we would create these incredibly elaborate game plans. I mean, you can imagine athletes putting together this list, right, of what we were going to get done. And, we discovered that by the end of January, definitely by the end of February, we had failed miserably on most of the things that we had tried to accomplish. And it really didn't keep us on track. So a friend actually said, hey, you should focus on one word for the year. What's your word for the year? And we're all like, Dan was like, what are you talking about? One word for the year. We've got a game plan. Have you seen these resolutions, And he's like, well, how's that going for you? And we were all kind of like looking away, like not as well as we want. And Dan brought this concept of, hey, what if we just focused on one single word for the year, created a one-word theme, if you will, and then allowed God to bring the life change that he wanted in all dimensions of our life. We kind of talk about 6 dimensions: mental, emotional, relational, physical, financial, and even spiritual. What if that one word could have a profound positive effect on each area of life? Let's give it a shot. And, we had failed so often with our resolutions, as, by the way, everyone else does. Mm-hmm. And we weren't, I think the things we learned in the early days was it's more about becoming the person that you're made to be rather than doing things, right? It's more about becoming than doing. And we just had tremendous success with it in the early days, and finally decided to, after over a dozen years of doing it, put it in a book, share it with others.
So tell me how that works. How does one word work? Because I'm like so many other folks, I guess. I want to lay out elaborate plans because I think the more detailed plan I can have, the more I'm going to accomplish these things.
Yeah.
Maybe I've even been taught that in some ways. Make sure you lay out your plans, your goal setting, and hit all the dimensions of your wheel of life. For those who are familiar, who followed us before, they're familiar with the wheel of life.
Yeah.
So, how does it work? How do I bring it down to one word? How does this all work?
Well, in the book, I think there's a number of things surrounding that, right? It doesn't mean that you throw out all of your goals, the things that you want to accomplish. But what it does do is it narrows the focus. When you narrow the focus, you experience greater life change. And we created a super simple process. It's 3 steps. It's look in, look up, and look out. I mean, it can't get simpler than that. And by the way, you have the book. You know that this book can be read in 45 minutes. In fact, that's kind of our promise at the front. We wrote it in such a way that it would be simple and powerful. That it's not simplistic, like, oh, that doesn't work. Instead, it's simple, powerful. So this easy process is a process that you go through. So looking in, for example, is when you kind of unplug from the distractions of life. You set aside some time for contemplation, for reflection, and you ask a handful of questions. What do I need most? If something in me was going to change that would have the greatest positive impact, what would that thing be? And then you start to journal a little bit about that. What's in the way? What's preventing me from becoming everything I'm made to be, from becoming my best? And you start to journal that, and then some words start to bubble up that if you focused on those words, it might bring positive life change. And then after that, we talk about looking up, and as 3 men of God, men of faith, We believe that the creator, the one that created us, actually has plans and he has purpose for us. So we plug into that source and we ask God, if you were going to do something in us and through us to make the greatest positive difference on others, what would it be? And it's a time again to really hear from God in prayer and contemplation, and to start to write down words that are associated with those things. And what we've discovered is you'll see patterns emerge. You'll start to see that there is a direction, if you will. And we talk a lot about these forming chapters in your lives. It's like, this is a chapter. If this chapter was a chapter of, for example, unstoppable, which was my word back in 2019, what if my word was unstoppable? What life change would that make to the way I think, to the feelings, how I deal with the emotions that I have, to the relationships that I have, to maybe achieving those goals that I have physically? And then you start to apply those things. So then you select your word. And then the last step is to live it out. It's to look out. It's to say, let me keep this front and center. Let me share it with other people, so that we can be, kind of spur each other on to fulfill our potential. And then we live it out for the year, and we watch as God brings incredible life change.
So who's this applicable to? There's so many things going through my mind right now, questions. I hope I can focus on because
Yeah.
everything was going in there. But first
Yeah.
one is this: who can use this? Is this just professionals? How do we do this? Who can use this?
We've seen every single type of person, every single age. We've seen it used in a variety of different environments. So, for example, when we first started back in 1999, actually, we brought it immediately to our spouses. We were all young marrieds. We brought it to our spouses, and they immediately picked it up. Like, they saw the value right away, and they put it into play. And then we used it with our kids. We brought our kids in as young as 2, 3, 4, or 5 years old. We wrote a kids book about this because it was so popular among families that we wrote a picture storybook about it, about how to focus on one word to make your best year ever. And
So even young children, younger than 5, yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, sometimes you help your kid. The caution is not to tell your kid what the word is. Like, oh, my son needs to be more obedient. Your word for the year is obedient. You can beat them up, but kids find this so easy and so rewarding. And we've launched it in school districts. Hundreds and hundreds of school districts around the country use this for their kids from kindergarten through 12th grade. We launched it at the college level. We launch it with teams. It's very, very popular with sports teams because, people can bring their individual contribution. A lot of times those sports teams will create a one word for the team for the season, which creates focus. We've used it in businesses, for anyone from, Intel to Microsoft. They're all using it because it's so simple and it works.
So I'm thinking who's listening to it right now, and I'm thinking about the adults who are working with youth, and I'm thinking that they're looking at it and think, wow, this is a great concept, but how do I get buy-in? How can I convince a young person who this is just going to sound like one of those another hokey pokey motivational personal development things that they're trying to dump on me? How do we get buy-in from them?
Well, I think the easiest way is in the book. We've got so many examples of how people have used it and how they've had success with it. I mean, for example, we've done it with the University of Virginia basketball team. There's incredible credibility in the process. We've used it with Clemson University, one of the most successful football teams in the country. We've used it with Fortune 100 companies. We've used it with high school teams, and we've got story after story, literally millions of stories now of how people have implemented it and experienced incredible life change where it's actually worked. And I would just say, sometimes I've never had somebody say, oh, this is dumb. Oh, that's not going to work. I've actually never heard that. It's so easily adopted and there's no risk, right? There's no risk to trying it. But if you do it, you're going to experience life change right away. you're going to experience camaraderie and teamwork and connection with your
Mm.
friends because they're all moving in the same direction. They all want the same things. They want to be their best.
You think it's easier for youth to kind of buy into it from a team setting than they would from maybe their parents?
It depends on their relationship with their parents, right?
Ah, that's a very
You
good point,
know,
Jim.
for us, it was we used it every single year on New Year's Eve. We would get together with our family and also the Britton's family and others, and we would paint our one words on canvas. So we get these little 9 by
Hmm.
12 canvas squares, and we would paint our word, and then we kind of go around the table, and everyone would share what their word is and why they chose that word, and also what their expectation was, what they were hoping for that year. So in our family, it became a really high relational conversation, an opportunity to really encourage one another. And if you're looking for something to change the temperature of your home, maybe you have a lack of connection. Maybe you've got some conflict between some of the siblings or maybe with the parents. This is a great opportunity to really speak life into one another and to encourage one another to be their very best. So I've seen it used as a positive tool to really improve relationships as well.
Hmm. When you said that, I was just picturing a family sitting aside, kind of doing a retreat almost. I would encourage the audience that's listening. You don't have to wait until January 1st to jump on these types of things.
That's right.
It would be very obvious because I was thinking, we might could do something like that when we have a family vacation together as we're kind of going over this.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you're exactly right. And, we've had a lot of success launching this at the beginning of a school year, for example.
mhm.
It really has been implemented and adopted in hundreds and hundreds, actually thousands of schools around the country, where they started teachers. They do it in their teachers' meetings. School administration does it before the year starts. And then when they head into the year, they do it with their classes. And one of our favorites, this has just been so much fun. Texas seems to be a leader in this area. They actually let their elementary school kids take the ceiling tiles out of the hallway close to their classrooms,
Oh.
paint their one words on a ceiling tile, and then they put them back in the ceiling. And so every single day they're reminded of their word. They're encouraging others with their word. When their parents come to visit, they're so proud and so excited to
Yeah,
show them
they're
their word.
pointing to one word up there.
Yeah. Yep. So it's really awesome. And we've seen that happen in companies too. We've seen a BMW dealership, actually Hendrick Motorsports, Hendrick BMW,
Mhm.
had all of their employees put their one words on the BMW, this white BMW in the showroom. And it became a wildly popular conversation piece. And they actually became the number one BMW dealer in the country.
That's quite impressive to allow them to put it on a BMW. That's an investment. All right.
Yeah, I've always kind of lobbied to get the car. I'm like, hey, what are you going to do with that car now? I was kind of thinking they would want to give it to one of the authors, but we haven't had any luck with that yet.
So I'm thinking through the personalities that might be listening to this, and there's that person that's going to say, okay, so what's the bottom line? What's the benefit to me? What's the benefit for me doing this? What's the benefit for me encouraging this? Yeah, we can have all this kumbaya moments, but I want you, Jimmy, to tell me how this is going to make a difference in my life now.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of different benefits. One is it allows you to narrow your focus, and I think we live in a world of busyness and distractions. So right off the bat, you're eliminating some of the noise. And I can't think of a better way to start the year than to kind of cut through some of the clutter and noise and be able to focus my life in one particular direction so that I can experience positive life change, right? So right away you're cutting through the garbage, you're cutting through the noise, and I don't know a person that doesn't want to do that. Simplify things and really stay focused. I think the other thing is it creates a positive expectation for the year. I mean, many people are struggling right now. They're struggling with negativity. They're struggling with all the things that are happening in the world that are kind of heavy and depressing. And it's hard to find a good news cycle anymore, right? So there seems to be a lot of reasons to be discouraged. This creates an opportunity for a positive expectation for the year. It immediately, and we've seen it happen with kids especially, that are down anxious, worried, depressed. We're seeing a ton of that today. They're kind of stuck in this COVID malaise, if you will, this COVID coma. And what this does is it gets your eyes off of your current circumstances, and it lifts your head to a hopeful future, a positive expectation about what can happen this year. I don't know a single person that won't benefit from that. The other thing it does is it helps you overcome challenges and obstacles. If you believe that that one word is going to refine things in you, in your character, in the way you think, in the actions that you take, you're looking for opportunities for growth. Always. You're looking for opportunities. And I think that's the picture that we want to promote to people is it changes your perspective right away. And then ultimately, it's designed for the benefit of others, right? It's not all about me. The real big thing is a life well lived is a life lived for others. So all of a sudden, I can get my eyes off me and I can start to think, hey, how is this positive change enabling me to make a difference for others? You know, who around me needs to be blessed? How can I use my word this year to be a blessing to others, to be an encouragement to them? And all of a sudden now I've got purpose. I've got a reason to make a difference for others, and it keeps me focused on what that looks like. So I think in the end, the promise is this. It's positive life change. It's that you will become more and more like the best possible, I hate this term, but version of yourself, that you will be continually made into the type of person that you want to be. You'll be making progress towards that. A lot of times without this kind of focus, most people don't even remember year to year what they accomplished or what they didn't.
So it's like it's going to be a vehicle to provide some hope too, as you build a foundation of hope.
Yes.
Just this last week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention came out with a study on adolescent mental health crisis, as they are identifying. It says that 4 in 10 teens in 2021 reported that they feel persistently sad or hopeless. That was the words they used, persistently sad and hopeless. 40% of all adolescents, and 1 in 5 contemplated suicide. That's someone who's had, who's worked with youth as long as you have. That's got to be an alarming stat to hear being reported.
It is, and I think that you're right. I think one word can be a catalyst out of that. I mean, you think about it. When you isolate people, you cover their faces, you tell them they can't go near any other human being for 2 years, in essence, and you create a sense of fear and dread about today and about the future. If you can pull that off, the wake of mental and emotional challenges that our kids are going to face are going to be astronomical. We created this crisis. Very few kids under the age of 20 were at risk from a very bad outcome from COVID whatsoever. Very few. It's infinitesimally small. We should have let them continue to be kids. Unfortunately, we made decisions that created a mental health, an emotional health, a relational health crisis now.
That's right.
And, it's time for us to stop promoting fear. We have nothing to fear. I believe there's never been a greater time to be alive than right now. And that's a choice. Anybody can navigate life in calm waters, but God has trusted us in turbulent times to be able to navigate life. So I don't buy into this lower the bar on expectations. In fact, I think this is the exact opposite time. We need to raise the bar on expectations. We need to lift the eyes of our young kids and tell them that the future is positive, it's bright, and you can co-create that future with God. I know as a person of faith, God says 365 times in the Bible to have no fear, to be strong and courageous. And I soak my mind in God's truth so that I can overcome the lies around me. So all of the lies around me that, we should be afraid, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I could tell you my personal experience. I got COVID, and everyone has their own experiences with COVID. Some of those some people have lost people. I've lost very close people to me,
Yeah.
not because of COVID, but complications with COVID for sure. But I got it. And I'll tell you this, uh, I always believed that I was not at risk based on the statistics. I knew that I wasn't at risk. I'm a very healthy person, and I made certain choices. And I'm encouraging people to lift out of the fear. Lift out of the fear. Don't buy it. Refuse it. When I have thoughts about fear and anxiety, I've always trained my mind to say, that's not from God. No, I'm going to live with confidence. I'm going to live with courage, and I'm going to be a blessing to others. The fastest way out of depression, the fastest way out of anxiety is to go bless and encourage somebody else. It's to do something, even if it's anonymous, to help someone else. So if there's any young people listening and they're down and they're kind of discouraged about their future, go do something for somebody else. Do the dishes for your mom. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel empowered. Go bless one of your friends. Speak some life and encouragement into them, because that returns to you. Those who refresh others will themselves be refreshed. It's time that we start looking at ways that we can be a positive influence on others.
It gives them purpose in life. And when you have that purpose, it's hard to feel hopeless if you have that purpose.
Yes.
When we were creating our new program, our life coaching program for people who want to be life coaches for youth, I had a friend who described this current generation as the hope deferred generation. And she was referring to Proverbs 13:12, where it talks about a hope deferred makes the heart sick. And that stuck with me. I mean, that was just so powerful to me as she described that. But then the word deferred kept going over and over and over in my mind. So I got up in the middle of the night. I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I sleep well every night. But this one night, I could not get it out of my mind. So I went and found my current dictionary, the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And I looked up deferred to see what we were saying deferred was what the definition was currently. And someone's probably listening and saying, "What do you mean? Definitions of word changes?" Yes, I'm afraid they do.
They do.
But I looked at deferred, and it in essence was saying it meant delayed or withheld until a certain time. And that got me excited, because it wasn't hope lost. It was not hope stolen. It was not hope taken away forever. It's just being delayed until a certain time, which means that it can be found and it can be obtained and it can be, and that got me all excited. Kind of gave me a purpose. That verse kind of gave purpose to this coaching program.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting off on a tangent, promote my own stuff now, but it gave me purpose to this, because I wanted to equip people to help youth find that hope that's been withheld for them, not stolen, just withheld. It's theirs. Let's go get it. And then I looked at the second half of the verse, which for some reason or other I didn't look up the first time. And it said, "But a dream fulfilled is a tree of life." And I was like, well, there's the outcome. There's the outcome. If we can help them find that hope, we can help them find their dreams, their hopes, and it be the tree of life. So
yeah, for sure. Well, I think it's time, to be honest, I think it's time to raise a generation of righteous rebels. That our folks, our kids, would stop believing the fear, stop believing the lies about their future, stop believing about the lies about their present, that they are more capable than they can imagine to change their own circumstances. I really do believe that it's so easy for people to stand out today, especially in this generation, if you just go for it. Because if you have a strong work ethic, if you're willing to sacrifice, if you show up early, for example, if you express appreciation to others, if you operate with a sense of humility and this constant learning spirit, you are going to stand out immediately. Right now, there's no deferral. You take control of your now, and you take control of your future. And I think it is time for kids to start saying, I'm raising the bar on what I expect for myself. My experience is, when you lower the bar of expectations, it destroys a generation. When you raise the bar and you call people up to a higher standard, when you ask them to perform at their very best, they make unbelievable progress towards their best. It happens every single time. You want to turn around a school, raise the expectations. Every single time. You want to turn around a family, raise the expectations. You want to turn around your path in sport or in education, raise your expectations. Raise the bar. We need some righteous rebels who are not going to perform down to the low level of expectations being put on them by their schools or by their family, whoever else is speaking these low expectations over them. Raise the bar. Go after something great, because you know what? God has planted seeds of greatness in every
Right.
single one of us. We have been made in the image of God. For those of us who put our faith in Christ, we've been given everything we need for a life of godliness to make a real difference for others. We need to remind ourselves of the truth sometimes so that we can become everything we're made to be.
Now, there's I don't know if you would say it's a sequel or just a second part of this, but there's another book related to this that you have, and it's about a life, not just one word, but a life word. What is the difference between those two books, and how can we use that as a catalyst to success in our life?
I think the simplest way to draw a contrast between One Word That Will Change Your Life, which is the first book, and Life Word is One Word is all about positive life change year to year. It's chapters in your story, if you will. And then Life Word is kind of a legacy book, beginning with the end in mind. And it's the title of the story. So it gives you legacy is Life Word, and life change is One Word. So year to year, you're forming chapters in your story. You're taking on the DNA of your word. For example, if your word was patient, by the year end, we believe that you will have been transformed in some significant ways to be more patient. And that goes with you year to year. So every year it becomes part of who you are. And then Life Word is really the title of the story. It's kind of a plumb line, beginning with the end in mind. What is the one word that could capture the essence of my life? And we take you through a process in that book to discover that.
I love it. So if parents, adults that are working with youth, or the youth themselves, they want to start the journey with building those chapters in their life with one word, where do they go to get resources? Where can they find out more about this from you?
I think the simplest way is to get the book. You can get the book on Amazon or in other book retailers. I think Barnes & Noble and others carry it. But if you want to go online, there's tons and tons of resources there at the website, getoneword.com. There's ways, once you discover your word, you can put it down in poster form. We give you ideas for how to keep that word front and center. Before you discover the word, we give you all kinds of tips on how to go about doing that process, all kinds of tips and resources on the website.
And I would encourage folks to go there. I was looking through it myself with my family and my wife in a group that she is in as well. And he's right there. There are tons of resources that they can have. How else can our audience connect with you if they want to learn more about what you're doing and connect with you?
Well, the new organization that I started just a handful of months ago is called the Unstoppable Freedom Alliance. And the website is just simply unstoppablefreedomalliance.com. And several months ago, felt that God was giving me a new assignment out of sports ministry with FCA and into the fight for freedom, individual liberties, our God-given rights and values in America. So we're kind of on the front lines of that and having a blast promoting and protecting freedom in America.
What types of things they're going to find on that website if they wanted to go to that?
Well, what we're trying to do, I think, most profoundly is create a positive vision for America, create a positive vision for freedom. What we've discovered over the last couple of years is that I don't believe people value freedom like they used to. And they're willing oftentimes now to give up freedoms in exchange for safety and security.
Right.
And when you do that, it's never really ends up being a good trade, to be honest. Once you give up individual liberties and you've given government, for example, more control, you really are giving up your autonomy, your ability to make decisions for yourself. So we want to reignite a passion for freedom. We want to revitalize the culture. We live in a day when you can be canceled if your opinion doesn't line up with my opinion. And I've never thought I would see that in America. I never thought I would see that in a free country ever. but people can be silenced for their opinion. They can be canceled. They can be deplatformed. All kinds of crazy things. We're silencing medical experts who have been trying to weigh in on this COVID pandemic. We're silencing these people. Never before in the history of our country has that happened. So we want to revitalize that. We want to end this cancel culture. We want to bring back biblical values. We want to bring back founding values like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, like equal opportunity. And so that's a big part of it. And ultimately, we want to encourage people to positively impact their communities.
Was it Benjamin Franklin that had the quote that those who trade freedom for safety deserve neither freedom nor safety? I probably got that wrong the way I
Well,
worded it.
it's been attributed to him, and I think that's why, John Adams said, we've given you a republic if you can keep it. We've given you this God-centered organization, this government that's based on individual liberties for the common good. But it's going to be up to us to keep it. So each generation has to answer the question, will we protect freedom and liberty in America? And this young generation gets it.
Yes.
They really do understand it.
I agree with you there. This generation, they see some of the errors, they see some of the problems that previous generations have had. They wonder why we let things happen the way that we let them happen. And they seem to have a better view. And a lot of it, I think, can be attributed to the fact that they live in a very connected generation, that they were able to get resources a lot quicker than we are. And this could lead us into a whole nother hour here of this statement that has been said, that this is the most connected generation in history, but they're also the most loneliest generation in history. But that's a whole other segment or podcast there.
Well, but I think there's something important there, because my youngest daughter is 19. She's a freshman at Liberty University in Virginia. My youngest son, John, is 22, and he is a senior at Liberty University, and they're going through this, right? Social media today allows you to connect to people that you don't know, that you'll never know. It allows you to compare your life against whatever else is being posted. And unfortunately, it's creating a ton of depression, anxiety. Andy Stanley would say there's no win in comparison. We know that. You're either going to compare favorably and be prideful about it, or you're going to compare unfavorably and be depressed by it. Social media connects people, but there's no real relationship there. And so that's why I love One Word, again, because you're doing it with people that are closest to you. You've got your inner circle. We call that your stretch team. You've got your inner circle of close friends who all are kind of moving in the same direction, encouraging each other along the way. Connection in community is the antidote for depression. And so you've got to come into these small group communities again. Stop this separation. Stop this 6 feet of that's garbage. Come back together in community. Establish those relationships together. Bring some joy and fun back into your everyday. Start enjoying life again with your family, with your inner circle of friends. And don't worry about the 10,000 other followers you have out there, because you're never going to know them, but you will know the 5 or 6 that are right there in your community.
I don't know if you know Bob Bodine. He wrote a book called The Power. You know Bob, so his concept, The Power of Who. That the word friend has been, that Bob's thesis is that the word friend has been devalued in this social media age, as you could have thousands of friends, and so he wants you to have that Who network, and he encouraged you to have 12 friends, 3 close friends, and 1 best friend. He said there was a guy 2,000 years ago that had 12 friends, 3 close friends, and 1 best friends, and he's still closing sales deals today. So it seemed to work.
It's so true. And he also wrote a book called Two Chairs.
Two Chairs.
And Two Chairs, I think, for all of us, is an opportunity to start your day seated across from an empty chair where you're inviting God into the conversation. And I think for this generation, more than any other, the importance of connecting with God in that way, setting up 2 chairs, establishing a meeting time every day, whatever time you get up, just, sit down in one of those chairs and invite God to be part of a conversation. He will lead, guide, and direct you in the way he wants to. He will open your eyes and ears to different things that you need in the moment, and he will really encourage you. So Bob Bodine, great man, great books, great
He was one of
concept.
our original guests on this show when we were live. We had Bob come in, and the
Amazing.
bad thing is, Jimmy, and then I'll need to get close and move on, but is that I was so excited Bob was on the show that and it was a live show. We were streaming it on Facebook. So there were like 500, 600 that were watching us live. I forgot to hit record on this platform until we were about 5 or 6, I don't even know how, 10 minutes in, and we went about an hour, but the first 10 minutes. So if you go back in our channels, especially on our YouTube channel, you'll see it. You'll see a little disclaimer that it says technical difficulties. We missed the first thing, and I joke with folks when they put that in there. I say the technical difficulties is that the host was an idiot. He forgot to.
That's the Urban Dictionary definition of that. Yes, that's exactly right.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today. You've really given us something to inspire us to think bigger. I think, isn't it amazing that the simplest concepts, like one word, can inspire us to think bigger?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complex.
That's right.
Wow.
That's right. And in
so
fact, I would say the more complex things are, the less you should pay attention, to be honest. I think it's if it's complicated, it's probably not. It's going to require too much for you to really implement it. The simplest, most powerful concepts are the ones that work. And I would just encourage the audience, keep your head up. Don't quit. Don't quit. It's never as bad as you think it is. And, inch by inch, life is a cinch. It sounds so stupid, right? Inch by inch, life is a cinch. Progress leads to happiness. Progress always leads to happiness. Why? Because when you're getting some wins along the way and celebrating those wins, you feel better. I can remember some of the darkest days for myself and some of the darkest days for my kids, going through hardship and saying, hey, get some wins today, because progress feels good. Progress leads to more progress, and that leads to momentum. And as soon as you can get a little bit of forward momentum, you're going to experience the life change that you want.
I was just talking with a guest yesterday about how you got to celebrate, those things along the way to build that appreciation for where you are in life, in order to kind of be successful in this. So all these links and the contact information for Jimmy is going to be in our show notes. So for our audience that's listening, if you'll go to your podcast app and look in the show notes, you'll find all those links. For those of you on YouTube, if you'll just look down, you'll see all this information. Jimmy, thank you again for being our guest today. I just want to thank you. This has been such a joy.
You bet. My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And thank you, audience, for sticking with us during this time. Someone needs to hear this message. So please like, comment, and share this podcast. And we'll see you again next week on the GenZ Show.